Good evening, I'm Ray Wheeler. Just before this old year runs out on us tonight, we at TV 11 News would like you to look into a mirror of the minutes, months, and hours of this past year. It's a goodbye to 1975. On January 1st last year, people asked, what is a novitiate? Who are the Alexians? Where is Gresham? Soon everyone would find out.
On the morning of New Year's Day, 1975, young and angry Menominee warriors delivered a message to the white world. They were now going to fight back. With arms, they had taken over the Alexian Brothers Abbey, and with their lives, they were determined to stay.
If they can't come across with the clear title to this property, they'll have to kill us to get us out of here. We are not leaving.
Within a week, the National Guard was called in to seal off the Abbey's 362 acres. And then the angry debate began, how best to get the warriors out.
Stop sending food in there, shut their lights off, and make it just as like it was when the Sheriff Montour had it, to not make it comfortable for these people, so they'll stay there for a year.
I repeat, no one in the Abbey, as long as I am in command here, is going to starve to death. No one is going to freeze to death.
I know of businesses that got loaded guns laying there. I know people who go home with loaded guns at night. They're scared.
After weeks, endless and frustrating weeks of waiting while negotiating teams went in and went out of the Abbey, finally, the evening of February 2nd, the news came. An agreement had been signed.
The Alexian Brothers have decided, after much prayer and deliberation, to convey title of the novitiate to the Menominee Indian tribe.
The next night, the warriors came out in well-guarded buses, escorted to the Shawano County Jail to face charges the next morning. And this was the Abbey they had fought for and left behind. But the fight isn't over. On July 11th, Brother Morris announced the order had changed its mind. The Menominees didn't seem to really want the Abbey, so they were going to take it back. And that night, firebombs lit up Menominee County in revenge. 2 homes on Legend Lake, a railroad trestle, and the Little Papoose restaurant were hit.
And while I was changing clothes, then I heard the smash of the glass and the 2 bombs exploding.
There was more fire October 12th. By arson, by accident, we still don't know. Part of the abandoned Abbey was destroyed by fire. And while violence still erupts in this county to this day, the future looks better. The novitiate now belongs to Crossroads Academy to be used as a school. And while some warriors begin 1976 in a courtroom, their younger brothers have a better chance, growing up on a protected reservation official this year, and growing up without the fear and violence that began this year, New Year's Day, 1975. For TV 11 News, I'm Collin Siedor.
Sometime within the next month, the trial of the 5 Menominee warriors charged with leading the takeover will begin all over again in Juneau. Many people picked up stakes wherever they were living and moved into our area during the past year. A lot of them did that because they thought their families and property would be a lot safer. But the news in 1975 made them feel that what they were running from was catching up.
For many people, 1975 was a frightening year. It was the year they looked down the front of a loaded revolver, a revolver held by someone bent on robbing them or maybe killing them. 1975 started with a murder, Mary Kay Zen, stabbed to death New Year's Day, and ended with a murder, Marvin Kowalski, blasted with a shotgun today. A shotgun also snuffed out a young policeman's life, Thomas Dodge of Two Rivers. Dodge's dad spoke at the funeral.
It's all sad. There's no bitterness amongst any of us, none whatsoever. No bitterness. No bitterness whatsoever. I hope whatever, if he's going to have to serve time, I feel sorry for him because he must have been sick to shoot Tom.
1975 was a frightening year for druggists, too. Men with guns robbed pharmacies throughout the Fox Valley. Luckily, no one was killed or injured.
It's awful scary when you take a look at that little black gun look right in your face, and it's very scary. I hope and I pray that we never see this happen again.
Sometimes it was a frightening year for bank tellers and customers as masked men armed with revolvers and shotguns robbed banks in Winnebago and Langlade counties. Arsonists made it a frightening year, too. They torched farms in Kewanee and Brown County, and the farmers organized patrols. Farmers weren't the only targets of arsonists in 1975. Fire alarms in 2 UW Oshkosh dormitories sounded over 15 times as someone lit lounges and furniture on
Some
fire.
person who was probably sick and who was an incendiary who gets a kick out of setting lounge furniture on fire. We've had 2 old lounge chairs set on fire and about 1 couch. And don't have any idea why somebody would want to do that. And I sure wish that he would stop.
Men with guns and torches weren't the only headline grabbers this year. Bid-rigging convictions rocked the plumbing and construction industries. The FBI searched for former Teamsters boss Jimmy Hoffa near Eagle River. And even though violent crime increased, so did the number of young men joining the battle against it. I'm Jim Willi, and that's a look at crime in 1975.
When we continue to say goodbye in 1975, we'll mirror empty wallets and half-empty gas tanks. The truth of it is, most people don't care very much about détente or Angola or American balance of trade. What they care about is making enough money to pay their bills, having a tolerable job, being able to buy about as much as everyone else. American politicians have known that for years, and this past year proved it again.
1975 began on an ominous note. For the first time ever, it looked like we might not have enough fuel to heat our homes or run our cars. We were worried. Many of us were losing our jobs as industry was forced into layoffs and shutdowns when it couldn't get needed materials to make products. We learned then how interrelated our economy was with our energy resources. Then there were those expected price increases at the gas pumps, up 3 cents, then 7. Predictions were 70 cents a gallon by summer. And car dealers found themselves in trouble. No one was buying their new cars. We were afraid to spend the money, afraid there'd be no gas, and the dealers were afraid of the future.
Is business this year kind of scary to you, would you say?
Yes, it is. It really is scary. I've never seen it like this in 29 years.
But then things began to change. We pulled in our belts and looked for ways to cope. First it was the automobile manufacturers. They came up with the idea for the rebate. Just buy a new car, they said, and you get money back. Then came the industries. Companies like Kimberly-Clark found a way to keep their people working. A crash course to change paper makers into paper sellers, and it worked.
Well, this is a little different situation for me. I usually make these Kimberly diapers for you, but now I'm out selling Kimberly-Clark products.
And then housewives and others got together and formed food co-ops, like the Big Family Buying Club, where buying in quantities and packaging your own saved you money.
Because I'm able to buy this much of it, I can save the customer 20, 30 cents on that gallon alone.
Even the government got into the act finally by lowering the speed limit to 55 miles an hour, thus saving a lot of that precious gas. Well, it's the end of 75 now. There's still an energy crisis. We still have to conserve. We all know now it'll never be the same, but things are better. More people are buying cars. There's still enough gas. Most of those who are laid off are back at work, and experts tell us the economy is on the rise. They're predicting a more secure 1976. I'm Kris Ostrowski, and that's a look at the economy energy story for 1975.
If we felt we might not have enough energy when this past year began, we sure didn't believe we wouldn't have enough food. The farms in America produced record crops again, but it wasn't easy.
It was neither a boom year nor a disaster. Often the degree of success hinged on the crops, how well nature treated them. If the harvest is abundant, if he gets a good price for his cattle at market, if his milk check is up, it could be a good year. Farming is always a gamble. There are so many ifs he must contend with.
It's really the worst as far as the corn crop that I can remember of any of my years of farming.
This field here we were watering, we'll save this, but most of our corn is on the dry land is already gone. It's past saving now. We could get 3 inches of rain tonight and it just wouldn't help.
For weeks, Mel Christie has watched the sky. Little rain has fallen. In almost 50 years of farming, he's never lost so much. Nearly 90% of his corn crop is withered under a scorching sun. And to make matters worse, the soil is sandy. It's like a sieve. It doesn't hold what little rain has fallen. While crops parched in Waupaca County and nearby Shawano County, an army marched in to devour the spoils of summer. Army worms silently laying siege to hundreds of acres of corn, oats, and alfalfa.
They usually don't act that way.
You see what's left of the oats when they're done, completely stripped of leaves and heads.
In 1974, Wisconsin farmers dramatically demonstrated how low prices had dropped for market calves. In protest, they shot and buried more than 300 week-old calves. They said they couldn't afford to fatten them for market. Some farmers say little has changed since then. Prices in '75 were still too low. And Jim Loftus is one farmer who says he's losing a struggle to keep his farm.
My first reaction was complete anger. That we've got 5 cents a pound for the calf, and there's no way that we can stay in farming and make a living at 5 cents a pound for veal.
Each year, America's dairy land shrinks a little more. Fewer young people are willing to stay on the family farm. The percentages, they say, are against them. But those who stay, the people who choose not to give up, have a love affair with the land. All they ask is a chance to make a living.
You know, I've never ever dreamed of being rich or even cared to be rich. We'd just like to raise our children and give them the necessities of life. You know, nothing fancy or extraordinary, but just a decent living.
When Goodbye 1975 continues, we put on the pads, the spikes, and grab our pennants for sports. If anything, this past year was just a continuation of the way things seem to be going for American sports fans. The worst part of sport got worse. The best parts of sport kept us hooked, just as they always have.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the biggest name in sports in '75, mostly because he got his wish, a trade to Los Angeles, a city more suited to his cultural lifestyle. Time for the Bucks to rebuild. People like Pulaski more intent on their TV sets back in March. The Red Raiders made their first trip to the state basketball tournament in ages. Time for an outpouring of Polish pride. The celebration belonged to the Neenah Rockets, however. Time after time they had been the bridesmaids, losing in the closing moments. Not this time, not in 1975.
We really are sharing this with all the young men who played for us before and had such tragic events and went through all the suffering and the tears and the difficulties of losing the final seconds. And so as many of them came into the locker room last night, we told them it's for you too.
Neenah won the sportsmanship trophy, Sheboygan Falls, its second straight Class B title. In July in Milwaukee was every kid's dream come true. There they were, all of the greatest names in Major League Baseball, in County Stadium for the All-Star Game. Before the break, the Brewers had been riding high. After it, they hit the skids. Thus, it was goodbye, Del Crandall. Hello, Alex Grammas. Ted Hendricks, after a one-year layover in Green Bay, will play for the Raiders in the AFC Championship. The scenario in July was bizarre.
But I think that we have to be realistic, and that, you know, if we can't be realistic, I don't know how we can get together. We think we've made a fair offer. We're, you know, willing to negotiate. We've tried to make this stance very clear to Tony Roberts.
I don't ever recall discussing our situation as far as money is concerned with Green Bay at all in any terms. So therefore, where this figment of somebody's imagination originated, I have no idea.
I'm not trying to get involved in any kind of debate with Mr. Roberts, but one time on the telephone, figures were exchanged, and that is some time ago, admittedly, but there were figures given to us at one time.
Unfortunately, Ted Hendricks loves Green Bay, and unfortunately, the Green Bay Packers organization is not in love with Ted Hendricks.
Then, just a few days into training camp, All-Pro guard Gale Gillingham suddenly retired.
Simply because I have a few problems that, that aren't going to change. Things that have built up over the years and whatnot. I've had enough professional football. It's time to retire. I don't want to hang on and say that old fart should have retired a year ago.
Gilly and Hendricks gone, MacArthur Lane traded, Buchanan and Markle injured. It was a long season for rookie coach Bart Starr.
Don't worry about me. I'll get along. Forget about me.
little show is over, and so the story ends. Why not call it a day, the sensible way, and still be friends? Look out for yourself, should always be the rule. Give your heart and your love to whomever you love. Don't you be a fool. Darling, why stop to cling to some fading thing that used to be?
Paul Ryden's film and music essay tells it all. The highlight, a win over Dallas, the record 4-10. Prayers and patience, but the attitude stayed high.
Don't you worry about me.
Things weren't much better for the Badgers of Wisconsin. Early season optimism sagged as John Jardine's crew staggered to a 4-6-1 record. It was fun watching Merrick run. Green Bay's Bobcats imported Red Hanna as their new coach. He talked about closeness.
When I say close, that doesn't mean close that we're going to drink till 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean close that we communicate all the time, that my door is always open to them.
A month later, the door closed. Hanna left town in tears. Gordy Human took over. What else? Oh, yes. The heavyweight championship of the world was not won by this man.
It is I! It is me! It is Pampero Firpo, the wild bull of the Pampas.
The fact of the matter is, Firpo and his friends remain the exciting yet ludicrous fringe of the sports world. If you want positive proof that we Americans are an odd lot, we submit this. We are mesmerized by, hooked on, fascinated with races, all kinds of races. It doesn't matter what kind, what length, what rules, what reason, or what the hazards. We love races. And when we don't have a race to watch or enter, we invent a new one.
It began in the winter with the dog sled races and the inner tube races, and they carried over into the summer. More raft races. This time there were 2. Then, of course, there were the big time racers and the small time racers. The marathon racers, they came both on foot and on knee. And if that wasn't enough for you, there were the foolish races, the lawnmower races, the burial vault races, and yes, even the bed races. Tired of races? Well, then there were the contests. The horse pull contest, not to be outdone by the people pull, followed closely with a flat from the chicken flying contest. There were the beauty contests, where hopefuls, both young and old, tried out. About the only one that ever made any sense was the pie-eating contest. At least they got something out of that one. But whatever race you watched, if you watched one, you'd seen them all. By the end of the year, they all looked the same.
Etc., etc., etc.
If you're tired of all that scurrying about, brace yourself. Next year, it's the political races. And coming up next, Goodbye 1975 mirrors the laughter and the tears of the people who live around us. As each day of any year passes, it's proven again. No fairy tale, no horror story, no fictional tragedy can ever come close to what actually happens. For us in northeastern Wisconsin, it was a year that took us from the depths of despair to the heights of exhilaration because of the things that happened to people.
We tried to check through the windows and see if we could spot anyone in the building, but there was no evidence that we could see.
Dave Danielski lost his wife Kathy and their 11-month-old baby in this fire near Crivets last January. Their tragedy was one of many in 1975. In May, construction workers labored beneath the mouth of the Fox River on a sewer tunnel. Suddenly, there was a terrible explosion in the shaft. And in the days that followed, the families of 4 men learned they had lost their father or brother or their husband.
In the debris that we found yesterday, there were cigars, and we found an empty package of cigarettes. Down in the tunnel? Down in the tunnel, floating in the water, yes.
We're still waiting for a judge's ruling on whether the Lazinski Construction Company was at fault in that explosion. Near New London, Joe Miller is still wondering who's responsible for the terrible mutilation of his horse. Like the cattle mutilations in many states, there's no easy explanation.
And there is UFOs around. There's things around. That's what I don't deny there ain't, because there is.
The experts said Joe's horse was shot and then picked at by scavengers. Months later, but only a few miles away, the Robert Lathrop family had a loss easier to understand, but harder to take. A respiratory virus wiped out the Lathrop's dairy herd, leaving them only a few heifers.
When it all first hit, and every cow in the barn was just groaning and foaming and kicking and just trying to stay alive. They just couldn't, nothing they could do and nothing we could do.
Farmers from all over called with suggestions for the Lathrops. Those who could offered to help rebuild the herd. Near Appleton, Ron Tyson and his family had a similar experience. Fire claimed his barn and $60,000 worth of beef cattle. But 2 weeks later, Ron found friends he never knew he had, helping him get back on his feet.
It sure is a good feeling to have something like this happen when you do have problems.
Arnold Van Gotham knows exactly what Ron Tyson was talking about. For the Van Gothams, it was a Christmas Day fire that destroyed everything. And again, neighbors and friends gave a happy ending to a tragic story.
Why do you guys stick together like this? We're farmers.
Farmers helped one another, but Great Lakes sailors could do nothing at all for the 29 men who lost their lives on the Edmund Fitzgerald in a raging November storm on Lake Superior. Sailors couldn't help, they could only remember.
Anyone that said they aren't scared of it has got to be crazy. Because there's no way that you can stand in the face of immediate death and look up and say, here I am. It just isn't done. Well, at least I'm not that type of person anyway.
The loss of the Edmund Fitzgerald made Al Augsburger relive his own brush with death 22 years ago when he lost 17 shipmates to the icy waters of Lake Michigan. But we had some good memories, too. Like the American Freedom Train, carrying the history and heritage of our nation from coast to coast and back again next year, a part of our 200th birthday celebration. They did rush us through. There was too much to see, but that is America, isn't it? Where else but America could a man like Louis Antonini, who put up a Christmas tree to see how long it would last, until finally, after 6 years...
My kid's kind of pressuring me here now to get a new tree.
Well, your kids want a new one.
Yeah. Well, kind of figure, well, maybe I should.
After 6 years, Louis, it's a good thing you did. So Louis Antonini's Christmas tree came down with the promise from him that he won't do that again. 6 years is a long time. And in 1975, we finally left Vietnam. We had been there a lot longer than 6 years. Then Americans came home and brought some Vietnamese with them. In Wisconsin and all over America, Vietnamese people began a new life here.
The fall of South Vietnam started in the northern provinces in early January. Despite repeated promises by President Tu that things were under control, both soldiers and civilians quickly panicked and fought each other in their attempts to reach the temporary safety of Saigon. Meanwhile, in the United States, and specifically in Stevens Point, Vietnamese students watched, hoped, and prayed that their families and friends were safe. The waiting was especially hard since all communications with South Vietnam were either hopelessly tied up or non-existent.
That the Battle of Saigon may be...
I try to go to class and at work, so I have to keep myself up. But sometimes at night, when I sit alone, then I can't help that tears come out.
And I don't think that the communists, once they take over the South, they will, let my family stay in prison, and they will do something like execute them.
To the best of our knowledge, the executions never took place, possibly because of the evacuation of close to 130,000 South Vietnamese. They were brought first to Guam and then to 4 relocation camps in the United States. From there, they were resettled around the country. One of the first in Wisconsin was the family of one of those students at Stevens Point. It was the first time she'd seen them in 4 years.
I'm so happy. I couldn't express my feeling. I feel that I think it is unbelievable. And I don't know, I never think about this really happening. And I'm so glad I see my family.
Close to 1,700 Vietnamese have now been resettled in Wisconsin. There have been problems with language, customs, finding jobs, and a host of others. But they all knew that before they arrived, and most feel under the circumstances it's better to be here than back in Vietnam. I'm Jack Ahearn, and that's the Vietnamese refugee story for 1975.
More could be shown of 1975. More will be written about the events of the year. Some will say there were crises. Some will say things were changed forever by what happened this past year. Some may remember little of the year. But for most people, 1975 was really just a lot of days strung together, and people spent most of their time fighting off boredom, laughing with friends, worrying about money, and wishing for better. For all of us at TV 11 News, I'm Ray Wheeler, saying we are wishing for better too.